Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your family relationships? Are you able to devote quality time with your spouse without neglecting your kids and vice versa? Is there disharmony among your children? Or is everything okay and you just like some advice on how to keep it that way? Up next on Another View, our favorite relationship expert, Alvean Lyons, joins us to talk about the ties that bind. But first, this is the last day of our Radio Pledge Drive. I hope you will call in now to support Another View at 889-9476. Let's check in with Linda Dyer and Tom Morehouse at Pledge Central to see how we're doing.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Let me echo the same message from the folks over in Pledge Central and personally thank you for the contributions that you make during Another View. It is because of your support that we are able to bring you this show. And on behalf of Lisa Godley, our producer, and Victor Bowen, our audio engineer, we just want to say thank you. Now, we have a $2,000 match. So your pledge of support during the hour will be matched dollar for dollar up to $2,000. So we need those phones to ring, please. 889-9476. And also want to let you know that Another View is up for 2 awards this evening. The Virginia Association of Broadcasters is holding its annual award ceremony, and we've been nominated for 2 of our shows. So we are really excited, and we hope that next week we can come back and tell you some fantastic news. So let's talk about today's show. Did you know that in order to have an emotionally healthy family unit, you have to manage relationships both horizontally, meaning between you and your spouse, and vertically, meaning between you and your offspring? So how do you do that? Our guest today has information just for you. She's a nationally known speaker, marriage and family consultant, parent educator, and relationship expert. Please welcome my good friend, Ms. Alvean Lyons. Hi, Alvean.
Hey, Barb.
It's so good that you're back with us again.
Yes,
always.
my favorite.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about family relationships. And the first question I want to ask you is exactly what constitutes a healthy family relationship? What does that mean?
Ooh, what a good question. Well, healthy is really about the mental and emotional stability of all of the parties involved. It doesn't have a singular formula in the sense that some people will say that, well, my husband and I fight, so is that unhealthy? And some people will say, well, I never ever fight in front of our children, or we never have arguments, so I think my relationship is healthier. So healthy doesn't have exactly the same definition because it's really not about whether you fight or don't fight. It would be, if you're a fighting family, how do you fight? Mm-hmm. It's okay to disagree, but it's how do we attack each other or do we attack the issue at hand? Mm-hmm. And are the people in our family, do they feel like that they're in a safe place where they could be themselves? While being yourself does not necessarily mean that your parents are going to approve of everything you do. And being yourself does not mean that your spouse is going to approve of everything that you do, but it does mean that you're in a place where people fully accept who you are, even if they disagree with some of the choices that you make. And they can share those disagreements or lack of approval of those things. But that should not have anything to do with whether or not you're loved and a knowingness that you are loved. Mm-hmm. So it really is about the principles that sort of wrap or encase the family structure more than each of the individual dynamics, because every family is so unique.
Well, are there certain characteristics, though, that kind of cross the board? For example, communication, love, like you said, things of that sort.
Universally speaking, yes, there are certain things that you're definitely going to look for. You certainly want to have a home where everybody is able to communicate their thoughts and their feelings to the best of their ability, because not everybody feels comfortable giving language to emotion all the time, but being able to find ways to express that and to be plugged in enough to recognize that there are some members that are going to be quick to say, and there are those that won't be, but not allowing those that are not naturally quick to communicate their emotions to be isolated in the process. Sometimes that means we might have to work a little harder to pull those members back into the conversation in the fold. But because we're part of a team, we don't let anybody fall outside of that. And then certainly that people mentally feel safe, that when we have conversations with one another, that I am not being attacked in the conversations. We may, and you heard me mention previously, we may attack the issue at hand, but we are not attacking each other. So how we deal with conflict is very important in terms of a healthy family structure. And then certainly a measure of support for people's individual dreams. We all have dreams for our lives, what we want, where we want to go, who we want to be, being able to be supportive of those things to the best of our abilities.
So we talk about this whole idea of horizontal versus and vertical relationships. And so what's the difference between the two? And then let's attack the wife and spouse first, or the man and wife, or the couple, the partners
right? Absolutely.
who are engaged in a relationship outside of the children.
Absolutely. Okay, so
that's horizontal, correct?
Right. So the horizontal is really about between the partners, because that's the thing that people underestimate how important that is in order to effectively handle the vertical. So when we're thinking about the hierarchical structure, most people would say, you have your children at the base, but you have your parents at the top, and that leadership is what sort of trickles down into the family. Well, if we have difficult issues going on at the top and we're not navigating those spaces effectively, then believe me that the same things that are happening in there, they're spilling over vertically. They're coming downward. So we need to do the best we can to create as healthy, not perfect, because we're not looking for perfection, but we are looking for wholeness. So we're trying to make sure that we create an environment where we are whole as people and as a team, so that it is on that foundation that the children are able to be raised.
Can you effectively parent if you do not have that good horizontal relationship?
Well,
or are you sending mixed signals to your kids?
That's a really tough question. Can you totally love your kids? Absolutely. Can you provide for them well? Absolutely. Can you be there for them the best you possibly can? Absolutely. But the thing that we have to remember is that much of our lives are about the partnerships we create. So the modeling component that comes from watching, what does healthy love look like? What does love look like? What does affection look like? What does support or lack thereof? What does that stuff look like? The kids are watching that the whole time, and they are developing models themselves for what they can expect in their lives thereafter. So it does matter what happens at that horizontal level, because it is forming and writing a script for the children.
It's funny when you mentioned about that, because as a single parent that I was for a very long time, I always was concerned that my daughter be around other couples, families that were together, so that she wouldn't think that it was, that everybody was just bad. If you were a male, you were just bad. We didn't want that to be there. I wanted to model very positive things, and so luckily blessed enough to have good people around us to be able to do that.
Yeah, and it's super important. I mean, and it's no different. And if you think about it in a little less critical terms, so to speak, if your child is naturally artistic, but you are not, our job as parents is to find environments where my child can see the things that I may not necessarily have or don't come naturally to me, because we want to nurture something in them that we recognize as necessary, even if we don't necessarily have it. And what I explain to parents all the time when I start conferences is I ask them, what's a bad parent? What's a good parent, and what's a great parent? And you get so many answers about that. But most of the time, the overarching thematic is that bad parents are those parents who neglect and are abusive and, all of the negative things we could possibly come up with. And good parents are those that are attentive and plugged in and so on and so forth. And I said, well, then what's a great parent? If you're giving me all this great stuff for good parents, then what makes a great parent? And most of the time, people don't know exactly what to say. They just kind of add super on top of the other stuff. You're super plugged in, and you totally love your kids. But I like a much broader definition of what that means. A bad parent is simply a parent who knows what your child needs and doesn't give it to them. A good parent, across the board. A good parent is a parent who gives their kid 100% of what they've got. Now, you may not have a lot, but if you're giving everything you got, you're a good parent. Now, my standard and your standard may be different, and that's not what we're talking about, but we're talking about individually. If it's all you have and you're giving it to your kid, you're a good parent. And then a great parent is the parent who recognizes, if in the world our ideal is a 10, but I recognize that I'm probably at a 7. There's a lot of things there are a few things I haven't fixed in me. I know that that's true. There are a few things that I still need to deal with and navigate, but I want to put a 10 out into the world. So I have 1 or 2 things to do as a parent, as a great parent. I either go develop those skills myself, or I create the environment for my child to be able to develop them on their own. So by my standard, what you said about your own child would make you a great parent, because you recognize that I might not have this to be able to show you, but I know that you may need it. So even though I don't have it, I'm going to create environments and opportunities for you to have something that I don't naturally have. That's great parenting.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. We have Alvean Lyons. She is a relationship expert, a parenting educator. And if you have questions about being a parent, engaging your spouse in positive and healthy relationships, engaging your significant other in those relationships, give us a call, 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. We got a question from Facebook, and I really want to get our audience involved because
Absolutely.
they
I love
have
that.
lots and lots of questions. And the question is, what should the step-parent's role be when it comes to disciplining their stepchildren? Fall back or step in?
Ooh. Well, there's no single answer to that question. The biggest thing whenever you're dealing with blended families is mutual agreement on how we're going to approach this.
Again, that horizontal has
Absolutely.
to be together.
There we go again, because it's the foundation of everything. So if my partner and I get together and she, for instance, I'm the male in the situation, she hypothetically has children already, but she's very sensitive about the fact that she does not want me to discipline the children in particular ways. But my orientation is to do those very things that she doesn't necessarily want. Well, if I do those things, for her, it feels like a breach of roles and boundaries, which becomes a problem at a horizontal level, in addition to the issue that it may create at a vertical level. So it's very important that horizontally we decide, listen, here are the things that work well for me. Here are the things that I'm still working on feeling comfortable with. I need to give me a little time to get used to, you fussing at the boys or you yelling at the girls, whatever it is, because everybody parents in different kinds of ways. And non-judgment, I have no judgment about those things as long as the children are doing well in that concept. Because I happen not to be a yeller, but some people are yellers and their kids turn out just fine. They turn out just fine. They're not freaked out by anybody yelling because their mom yelled their whole life. So just because you do certain things different ways does not make you a bad parent. You just parent differently, but really we're interested in the health of the child.
Exactly, the health and the safety of the child.
Absolutely. So when we're a blended family, the deal really is we have to get on the same page about the role that you're going to play, because you may think that as the step parent, I should fall back on some of those issues, but your partner feels like that means that you don't love her kids as if they're your own. So it's in their mind, they were marrying a man or a woman who was going to actively co-parent with them in the process, but you're trying very hard to just respect the fact that technically they're not your biological children, but not realizing you may be communicating a message of being different and not the same, that you are not mine, you are hers and whomever else's. So we need to agree on how that will be communicated.
I've heard couples say, or one of the couple say, I'm not marrying your family.
I'm just marrying you. No such thing.
Exactly.
There's no such thing. And people like to believe that is true, and sometimes people refer to it as a very westernized orientation to the world or individualistic orientation to the world, that it could just be a one-on-one thing. It's not 1 on 10, 1 on 25. But the reality is, when you get married, you marry the whole family. When you become
Both
a parent
ways.
in both directions, and when you become a parent, you become a parent of all of the children. There's no such thing as I'm a full parent for this child, but I'm a 3/4 parent for that child. You are 100% parent for all of them. How you may display that parenting may be different based on the circumstances, but you are still 100% a parent, because kids don't come into this thinking, okay, well, I'm not really your kid, so I expect to be loved less and to be engaged with less.
Okay, but let me push back a little bit. So the little kid that comes to you and says, you're not my daddy.
Right. And they will say it. But they don't.
So how do you
the thing is
reconcile
that even though they say it, they don't mean that emotionally. There is not a single kid on the planet that would say, I don't want to be loved by you. Not in their sincere self. Now, we know teenagers, we know they kind of feel like, I'd be okay if you just didn't exist altogether.
But they think that about their biological parents.
Right, so it really wouldn't matter who you were. You're the teacher, you're the principal, you're the coach. They don't care. Like, they just may not be feeling you at this particular point in their life. However, in the sincerest parts of who they are, nobody wants less love. So the expectation and even in the statement that you're not my daddy, yeah, that's because I don't want the discipline and the structure that you're coming with, but I don't want less love. I don't want less support, affection, and knowingness that I have somebody on my side.
Let me throw the phone numbers out one more time. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Give us a call and let us know how your relationships are working out between you and your spouse or significant other, as well as how you deal with the children. We'd love to hear from you. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So if the kids, let's talk about the whole idea of discipline meaning love, not meaning punishment in that sense. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Because sometimes people interpret discipline in terms of corporal punishment, that discipline means we're spanking, we're whatever your concept of punishment may be. We're sitting you in the corner, we're grounding you. Discipline can mean lots of things. Discipline can be as simple as structure. That here is what the expectation is. Here is what is allowed and what's not going to be allowed. That's a disciplined household. If I go to the gym 3 times a week, I eat well, I'm a disciplined individual. So disciplined should not have always a negative connotation that says punishment. What discipline really should be is a measure of structure and boundaries that are very clear, and then we're consistent with whatever the rewards and consequences are.
And boundaries are really, really
they're
important.
Healthy.
Okay.
They are very
for both
healthy.
your spouse as well as the children?
Absolutely.
Is there a difference in terms of the way you set boundaries for both?
Oh, definitely. Because where your kids are concerned, it's sort of an executive decision. Here are the things that are not going to happen in our house. Here are the things that are totally accepted and approved, supported, so on and so forth. But where spouses are concerned, that's a very different conversation. I am not going to tell you that you can have 2 phone calls per week. You can go to the gym for an hour and 15 minutes. I expect you home by 9 o'clock. I mean, that's certainly not going to happen between 2 adults that respect each other. So yes, we have a different kind of conversation, but are there still boundaries in both relationships? Absolutely. It's just how we go about communicating those boundaries and the types of boundaries that we are setting up. Very important.
So let's talk about some very concrete ways that parents can talk about how they want to be parents ahead of time. Before, either if you're coming together as a blended family, that conversation needs to happen before that family comes together.
Right.
If you're having a biological child, you need to have that same conversation ahead of time.
Absolutely. And it's not an easy conversation to have because most of us believe that how we were raised worked out just fine. And it's only when somebody else is experiencing you that they're already figuring out where your parents screwed up. So they are, even though I love you, they're already assessing, okay, this thing that irks me about our relationship, I know that came from your mom because I watch how you guys are together, or that came from your dad because I watch how you guys are together. He does the very same thing. So you're already assessing in your head, we are not doing that when we have kids. But for the person who is the product of that, they don't think that there's anything wrong a lot of times with the way that they turned out. So they don't have any issue with carrying that on in terms of how they're going to raise their own children. So it is a very sensitive conversation sometimes to have when we may have very different perspectives about how we want to do this parenting thing. But it's one that is necessary because, yet again, everything starts at the horizontal level before it really works effectively at the vertical level.
So how do you know how much to compromise?
Some of us I call them non-negotiables. There's certain things that are very important to each of us that we just know we want for our kids, that we know we want for ourselves. The non-negotiables are things that are very difficult to compromise on because those are the things that are genuinely your core values. So if those are your core values, I don't expect people to compromise on your core values. That has a lot to do with who you choose as a partner. Ideally, you are choosing a partner who supports your core values. The display of those core values may look different based on our personalities and where we've come from. But you asking me to change my core value in order for us to have a relationship, that's a whole nother issue.
That's another flag.
That's a whole nother issue, because that will come up over and over again, because it is who I am. So I can't change who I am. I can change how I present, but I don't change the principles of who I am as a person. So when you're choosing a partner, it's really important that the core values are at least complementary. They don't have to be the same, but they need to be complementary, because the one thing children will definitely do is put absolute illumination on whatever it is that is most central to who you are as a person.
Got a question from Facebook again. The single mom with a full-time job and latchkey child wants to know how to convey to that child that even though they can't spend as much time with them as they liked, that they are loved without being materialistic, without buying them stuff.
Very good. That's a great question. The materialism thing is very important, that we try to stay away from that as much as we possibly can where our kids are concerned. We want to provide their needs and some of their wants, but we do not want to deliver and communicate all of our love through things. It really reduces an individual's ability to appreciate people as a whole and the quality of real relationships.
You said something to me recently when we were having a private conversation about how your children expect time. I mean, time is much more valuable
than money, because you will run through resources, but you will never run through memories.
Wow.
The most beautiful thing that you're ever going to have are the memories that you build.
I have to write that down.
That you build with people. It's true. I mean, at the end of your life, what you spend your time going through are all the memories that you created. You don't remember what your paycheck was at that last speaking engagement or contract, or even what you made at the third job or when you were promoted to VP. You don't even think about those things. What you think about is the time you spent with the people you cared about the most. So one of the most valuable things that you can teach someone is to value the relationship more than the things, because the things will disappear eventually.
And I kind of feel this single mom, because that is always a conflict.
Absolutely.
Too. And I've had my own child say, you're always working. And that was a mantra when she was growing up. And it's tough to convey to them that, but mommy has to work, because I have to take care of your physical needs also, but to be able to show them love and to do things, I guess, when you are available.
Absolutely. And that's when you really have to focus on quality time, because when quantity is not something that you can provide, as much as we'd like to be there at every game, we watch television together, we sit down at the table, we'd all like to have that be true, but it is not something that we all can have be true. So now it's about, what do we do with the time that we do have? When you're home, are you watching television? Are you still fielding emails? Are you taking phone calls? What are you doing during that period of time? Because you could make up for the quantity by really maximizing the quality of the time together. And then the second thing that I would definitely say is, we cannot assume that children understand why we do what we do. A lot of times when we're busy working, we think that our kids know that I'm working to provide the best life for you as possible. But for a child, sometimes they cannot distinguish that abstract idea that your absence is about your love for me versus your absence just being about your absence. So we have to make sure that we're having conversations with our kids, that plugging in with our kids, so that whatever script you have going on in your head matches the truth.
And it needs to be age appropriate.
Absolutely. I always say developmentally appropriate, because what a child is going to comprehend at 5 years old is very different than what they're going to comprehend at 15 or 18. So definitely we want to make sure that it is age appropriate, but we do need to have the conversation, and we do need to maximize the time we have.
Oh my goodness, there's just so much to talk about. But before we go into that, I want to go ahead, and I hope that Sandra and Dan are standing by, because we need to go take a little break. Remember that $2,000 goal that we talked about?
We need to talk about that.
We want to find out whether or not we have actually made that. But if you're just joining us, we're talking about making family relationships stronger with marriage and family consultant Alvean Lyons. And now we're going to take a quick break and go on over to Sandra Woodward and Dan Cawley to see how we're doing. How are we doing, guys? guys?
We're doing great, Barbara. From what I
fantastic.
understand, I think we have about 1,000 left from the challenge
Yes!
that you put out. So 1,000 has been snapped right up. And when we say there's some challenge money, what that means is a dollar for dollar match going on right now. So when you call in to pledge your support for what you love, which is of course another view here on WHRV, your money will be matched dollar for dollar. 889-9476 is how you can do that. 757-889-9476. Or you can do what my friend Dan Cawley did not just 30 minutes ago and point, click, and pledge at WHRV.org.
I did. I pointed. I clicked.
I watched him do it.
I pledged and I pinged. So when you hear the ping come out, you'll know that your contribution has gone through. And I'll tell you, Barbara's talking about quality time.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like every time I listen to Barbara, it's quality time.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, but thank you, seriously. As a member and as a volunteer, I recognize the quality of the time that I spend listening to WHRV. The news, the information, the in-depth discussions. Thank you for that call.
Thank you.
The in-depth discussions you're hearing right now on this show, you're not going to find anywhere else. No one's going to put that kind of time and effort into helping you do better, be better, think better, know more. And you're only going to find that here on WHRV. So get on the phone right now and join me as a member and pledge your support. 889-9476. And there's no better time to do it because for every dollar you give right now, it's going to be another dollar match with this challenge. 889-9476. It's like a 2-for-1 deal.
Quantity versus quality, that's one thing you get when you support public broadcasting, when you support WHRV. You're getting quality programming. This isn't one of these things where we just throw how much spaghetti we can against the wall and see what sticks. This is not about quantity here.
Right,
It is about quality. And that's what you get every noon, every Friday when you listen to Another View. I know you're listening. This is appointment listening.
Sure.
This is one of those things that you count on your dial at noon on Fridays. If you love it, then support it. That's what this whole campaign this past week has been about, supporting what you love. And you can do that. Make a pledge of support at $1 a week, $4 a month. That's $48 level. It could be dollars a day. Whatever works for you, that goes all into the little kitty that helps support the programming that you love, such as programs like Another View. 889-9476 is how you can join brand new member John Stewart of Hampton. Thank you so much. He pledged in support of Skip, and today is Pet Pledge Friday too, Dan. So we're getting lots of folks calling on
I heard
behalf
you
of
say
their
kitty.
pets.
I heard you say kitty. I heard that.
Their dearly departed pets, as John Stewart just did there. So welcome
Thank
to
you
the
for that
family,
call.
John. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you taking that leap of faith from being just a listener to being someone who supports what it is that he loves, which is Another View here on WHRV. 889-9476 is how you can join John in membership of WHRV.
I heard the ping, which means someone was online, WHRO.org, and they pointed, they clicked, they pledged. They're probably eating, so they didn't want to call. We appreciate that. A lot of folks listen to this show while they're at lunch. So take a few minutes to, swallow and take a sip of soda, whatever that is, your coffee, and get on the computer, WHRO.org, point, click, and pledge. And pledge, whether you call or whether you click, pledge for your pets. It's a tradition here at WHRO and WHRV on the last Friday of the drive. And remember, it's the last Friday of the drive if we get there, to do it in honor of your pets. I've got 36 pounds of cats at home. And I was proud to pledge today for Tigger and Raja. Yes, 36 pounds of cats. That's quality right there.
It's intimidating. That's quality.
So join
quantity.
Join me and Tigger and Raja and our family who are members by calling 889-9476 or going online to point, click, and pledge at WHRO.org.
Do it now, folks. Do it now while Dan and I are talking at you for the next minute or so, because we know you don't want to miss a single minute of what you hear on Another View.
Sure.
And so pledge right now. Pledge for Another View. Pledge your support for it. Help us help support what it is that you love. 889-9476. Get on this dollar for dollar match. Dollar for dollar, your money will be matched. All that money going to support Another View here on WHRV. 889-9476. 889-9476. WHRV.org. Point, click, and pledge. There's a little red button up there in the corner that says support now, I think, or pledge now, or something like that.
I think it's support now, but
Support now.
It's all about supporting. It's all about letting folks know that you care, and you care about the quality programming here. 889-9476. WHRO.org. Monica Ropiak from Carrollton did, for pets Daisy, Bitsy, and Kevin Finnerty did from Virginia Beach, for her new flies, Julie, Emma, Maeve, and Harley, and someone else just did too. So get on the phone and join us. 889-9476.
And now we're going to take you back to what it is that you're paying for. Great quality programming here on WHRV with Another View and Barbara Hamley. Thank you so much, Barbara. Keep those calls coming.
Thank you so much, Sandra and Dan. And Sandra, congratulations to you. She also is up for an award tonight with the Virginia Association of Broadcasters.
Tonight.
Absolutely.
Right.
So looking forward to it. Absolutely. And I want to let the audience know the numbers that I give out during the show, you do not have to pledge. You can just call and join our conversation. And those numbers are 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Those are the numbers to call to join our conversation, and we would love to hear from you. Okay, Alvean. Here we go with another question. Facebook is like popping. This is great. We love that.
We love technology.
Okay, there's a single person who wants to know, what are the deal breakers and the things you should compromise when forming that horizontal relationship? For example, he wants kids and you don't. Mm-hmm. Deal breaker, but who will do the chore? What chores could be compromised?
Mm-hmm. And actually, that's a perfect example, because if your concept for who you're going to be and who you want to be in the world includes you being a parent, but the person you happen to love has no intention of ever being a parent, you really have to ask yourself, can I be happy the rest of my life without ever having that experience? And for a lot of us, the answer is no. So regardless of how much you love this person, that love eventually turns into resentment, because part of who you wanted and needed to be is being quelled by this relationship in particular. So sometimes we have to remember that just because we love someone doesn't mean that we have to be with them. And it's hard for a lot of people to accept that reality. I can love you, but we may not be good for each other, not in terms of who we both want to be and need to be in this world. Mm-hmm. And that may mean that we have to develop a friendship and we stay in each other's lives to have the best things that are working, but we may not be able to maintain a romantic partnership or even a long-term partnership in that way. So yes, you can compromise on who does what chores. Yes, we can compromise on who's going to take care of certain things where the house is concerned, so on and so forth, or even who's going to be responsible for paying the bills versus who's saving for our retirement. You could compromise on those kinds of things, but you cannot compromise on the things that are core to who you are.
Mm-hmm. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Sherry joins us from Williamsburg. Hi, Sherry. You're on the air.
Hi, yes. I was calling. I was asking with regards to my 6-year-old. It seems like we argue frequently. And a lot of times it's just like today, it's sunny outside. And I'll say, oh, it's sunny outside. Well, no, Mommy, it's actually really hot. And it's just always a tit for tat. And I don't know if it's just the age, but it just seems like we argue all the time. And I wouldn't want his childhood to be this memory where it's like, gosh, all I ever did was argue with my mommy. And I know I shouldn't be drawn in to an argument with a toddler, but for whatever reason, if I say left, it's like, no, go right. If it's green, no, it's red. I really don't understand.
And, we're chuckling because we've both been through it. Alvean.
Well, Sherry, I must tell you that it's a perfectly normal part of the development, and each of our kids' personalities are different. So if you have two more, you may get two totally different children post your current very vibrant 6-year-old. But I will say to you that sometimes what you're experiencing is a child who just wants to be an independent thinker. But the way for them to communicate that is to communicate it with you. Our kids practice on us first what it is that they will eventually use out into the world. And sometimes as parents, it's a little irritating because we taught you to speak and we taught you to stand up for yourself, but we didn't mean with us. we really meant with everybody else who doesn't totally love you as much as I do. So it's okay that it's part of them expressing themselves. The big thing for you as a parent is, yes, don't get too drawn into it. You say what you need to say and you move on. Because sometimes they also enjoy the energy because it's like a little tug of war. And that's kind of fun. And depending upon your child's personality, they can really thrive off of that little exchange of energy. Because I totally have you paying attention to me right now. because you're trying to convince me of something, but really I'm the only thing in the world right this second.
So should she just answer the question and then move
and
on?
move on.
Okay.
And move on.
Does that
Unless
help?
it's something that has to be changed. We have to do this thing and the child wants to do something different. We can't move on until you're doing what it is that I need you to do for whatever reason that may be. But if it's not anything major, don't waste your time. Okay, baby, the elephant's pink. Okay, you got it.
Does that help you, Sherry?
But yes, definitely. Thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Give us a call if you have questions on managing relationships within the family unit. Here's one that, before we move on to that, because Sherry actually brought up a good point. So how do you know how far to let your children go in their independence or in their expression of their independence? And does culture play a role in that?
It can. Because if I already know that if I do certain things with you at home, but we're going to spend a lot of times with your grandparents, and if you do that with your grandparents, that would be considered very disrespectful, then I don't want to set you up for those kinds of things. And my family is a really good example of those kinds of things because I'm not American. So, I mean, I was born American, but my culture is actually Caribbean and West Indian. So my parents were very traditional in terms of how they orient to certain kinds of things and the ways in which children communicate with adults and so on and so forth. Well, I have a much more lenient way of being able to communicate with my kids. I really want to know everything that's going on in their heads. So for me, it's not what you say, but it's how you say it. But with my parents, it may even be what you say as well. So what I had to do early on with my kids is say that in this environment, we can do A, B, C, and D. It works with mommy for you to say these things. I just need you to say those things respectfully. And I have to define, and for each of us, we have a different definition of what respectful means. But I had to define what those things mean. But I also told them that when you're with your grandparents, you have to understand that that doesn't work for Nana and Papa the same way. So with Nana and Papa, you may have to wait, communicate with mom about what that is, and I can help you figure out how to frame that thing for your Nana and your Papa, because I want you to be successful in that relationship as well. So culture can play a role in how we approach those things.
And when you work with your kids to say this won't work for Nana and Papa, do you also have to work with Nana and Papa?
Yes.
Or do you let that go?
Yes. No, I do. Okay. Everybody feels differently about it because I do know I have some very good Asian friends who will express that they do not address those things where their parents are concerned because culturally it's inappropriate for them to do so. So they literally just have to train their kids to just deal with whatever it is that they need to deal with their aunties and the elders.
The elders of the family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But in my household, as long as I approach my mom and dad the way that I was raised to approach them about what it is that pertains to my children, we can have very good conversations. It's just that I know that my children might not necessarily know how to frame that thing just right in talking to their grandparents.
Which leads us to talking about, and I know we got a call, but I want to get this in.
Sure.
This whole idea of as we grow older, we have in our relationships with our parents
change.
Because you just made the statement of I will approach my parents the way I was taught to approach them.
Absolutely.
So does that?
Yeah, there's a lot of dynamics that change as you grow. And one of the things I wrote years ago on the parenting continuum is that we have to recognize that there's an evolution that takes place. When our kids are small, we are more like the supervisors. Your supervisor kind of looks over your shoulder, making sure you know how to do what you need to do, may step in places that they need to. It's a little bit more hands-on. Manager is what happens when they start to move into their tween and teen years, where as long as you've bought in to what the goals and responsibilities are, I can step back a little and watch you work through it. And I step in when you're having difficulty or I see you struggling with something. But ultimately, when our children become adults or young adults, we move to consultant. And that's where it is by invitation that you step into your child's life. You don't decide for yourself that I need to tell you how you're going to do A, B, C, and D, but rather we engage in conversations because you've invited me into that conversation.
Now, once you invite me in, you should
then
listen to what I can say.
Well, if you ask me,
yes,
I'm going to have to tell you the whole truth. You asked me. But if you didn't ask me, it is not my right to tell you what to do in your own household. If you're living in my house, that still makes me the manager. So that's
no
a little
matter
bit
whether
different.
you are 13
regardless,
or 31.
Because if you are independent enough for us to have a truly consultant relationship, then that means you are independent. So you can't be dependent on me and simultaneously expect to have a pure consultant relationship. Now there's a little bit of flexibility that we have to have because I have to respect your adulthood. However, if I am funding your adulthood, that is going to change the dynamic of our relationship.
Absolutely. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Debbie joins us from Chesapeake. Hi, Debbie. You're on the air.
Hi. I have a 15-year-old daughter who is very strong-willed, and when she wants to do something and I'll tell her no, I'll have to tell her no. It seems like 150 times. I mean, she just tries to wear me down.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I try to stand my ground, and sometimes I just pick my battles, but I'm just wondering any advice you have because it just seems to be a constant battle.
Now, Debbie, let me ask you a quick question. Has she always been that way?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
But it's definitely gotten worse.
And I'm going to ask one more question where that's concerned. When she was little, was she kind of like that even when she was little?
Yes.
Okay. So here's what I think. We don't realize sometimes as parents how much our kids have trained us to behave particular ways, as opposed to us training our children. But I don't know if you're familiar with the term that we teach people how to treat us. What happens is if I figure out as a little kid, if I cry long enough, mom always gives me the cookie. Then by the time I get to a tween, if I fuss long enough, mommy will buy me the game. Then by the time I get to a teen, if I argue long enough, mommy will let me go. It really all stems from the same place. And one of the most difficult things that we have to do as parents is be consistent. Draw the line in the sand and then have the courage to stand there. And that may be really uncomfortable sometimes because you're dealing with behavior that you would really prefer for it to just be done. But the reality is that if we do not decide to put that line in the sand and not negotiate about that line, they will always test to see what they can do to eventually push us to what they want.
And so no matter where you are in that continuum, you can still set the line.
Oh, most definitely. And it doesn't matter. I mean, I have adult children at this point. And quite literally, if I said that I'm not doing it, I don't care what you say to me. I'm not doing it. If I said no, it's no. You can have all the feelings you want to have. And when you are in your own house, paying for your own bills, you can do whatever you want. And when you become a mommy, you can let your kids do whatever they want. They just won't sleep over at my house very often. But the reality is that is then your life. But as long as I'm the person who's responsible for you, my boundaries are my boundaries.
Okay, let me ask you, Debbie, do you have a spouse or a significant other in the household?
No.
Too? Okay.
No, so it's just me.
Just you. Okay, because I was going to ask about support from your other.
Because that can be challenging.
Or from her other family members also when she's trying to hold that line.
That's very important. But the one thing that I will say is children, even when children are very small, if their nana speaks German and they're in their house, they speak English, children will still learn how to speak English at home and German with their nanas. Well, the same thing is true about the cultures within our families, because we have subcultures within the culture of our whole family. You know, that between me and my aunties, between me and my grandparents, between me and my dad versus me and my mom, we can have lots of subcultures. But children will learn how to speak multiple languages with the people that are consistent about the language they speak. So if Debbie takes the hard line, and you still with us, Debbie? You can hear me still?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
okay. If you take the hard line, Debbie, that when you're speaking to me, lovely child, we'll call her Anna. When you're speaking to me, Anna, we're going to speak in Japanese. But when you're speaking to your grandmother, you can choose to speak to your grandmother in Italian. Then when she speaks to you in Italian, you don't comprehend Italian because you don't speak Italian. You've already established that we communicate in Japanese. So if that language is a language that says that you will respectfully ask for what it is that you want, I will listen to what it is that you have to say because I do respect you as an individual. But if I disagree and it's a no, then it is a no. End of discussion.
And there's no other language.
End of discussion. There's no other language because when you start moving into Italian, no comprende, even though technically that's Spanish.
Does that help you, Debbie?
Yes, it does very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate the phone call. So we've only got a couple minutes left, as always, because you know how
goes so fast,
our
right?
hours go. So here's a question for you. How do you handle it if your spouse becomes, or significant other, becomes jealous because of the time you spend with your children? Maybe you two were together for a long time,
Right,
and now all of a
there's
sudden there's this baby,
or
or older child
somebody
you adopted,
came back,
or whatever.
somebody came back home, or whatever
Exactly.
that is, and the
Exactly.
dynamic changed. Okay. Well, that's really an issue of conversation, because when I said earlier the importance of making sure that at the horizontal level we're good before we start moving into the vertical levels, we need to be able to have a conversation about what your expectations were versus what it is that you're experiencing. And if I love you, I want, to the best of my ability, to be able to make those things match. So it really begins with us dialoguing about what this new normal is going to be, so that I can include in it what it is that you need, and you understand what I need also, even if it's my relationship with my child.
With your child. So now I know you have a couple of things you'd
I
like to share with our
do.
audience in terms of some those of you who want some other ideas and advice on parenting.
Things
Go
that they
ahead.
can participate in. Absolutely. Well, the summertime is a great time for parents to be able to bone up on some new skills so that we can go into our school year even better, and certainly to be able to connect with their kids at different levels. So I'm over on the other side. Okay. I'm over on the other side of the water in Hampton, and Hampton Healthy Families Partnership has this summer Guiding Good Choices, which helps you teach your kids how to make good choices. Winning Without Fighting, which is fantastic for teenagers. Connecting with your teen, another fantastic thing. And 1-2-3 Magic, if you have smaller children, being able to develop that structure. All of those things are available, and they can find out so much information by just calling 727-1300. And if you're a Hampton resident, those classes are free. If you're a non-resident, for a small fee, you could participate in those classes. And I always encourage parents to grow during the summer.
Fantastic. And we will also put this information on our
Fantastic.
website, anotherviewradio.org, and also put the phone number out. Tell them the number one more time.
Sure.
to call.
That's Healthy Families Partnership, and that's 727-1300. And you can tell them Alvean told you had to call.
Alvean, thank you as always for
it's such
great
a pleasure.
sound advice, and we really, really appreciate you.
Thank
and
you.
we will be right back.
Hi, I'm LaShawn Merritt, and if you want to discuss the issues and celebrate the successes of the African American community, listen to Another View on 89.5.
And thank you so much, LaShawn Merritt. We appreciate that. Each week, our classical music station, WHRO 90.3 FM, features the program From the Top. It's the renowned showcase for young musicians from all over the country. Well, this week, the talented musicians taking center stage are from right here in Hampton Roads. So sit back and enjoy as our Lisa Godley gives us a sneak peek of this amazing performance featuring two extraordinarily gifted brothers from Newport News.
To hear them play, you'd think Brendan and Sterling Elliott were much older. But these brothers from Newport News are teenagers. Brendan, who plays the violin, is 19, and his younger brother Sterling, the cellist, just 14 years old.
It's Handel's theme, and it was made into this huge passacaglia by a composer named Halverson. And it's a duo. It was originally written for violin and viola, but it's been transcribed for violin and cello, which many people, me and Sterling included, think that's a better version of the piece. But it's basically, it starts out with this very strong rhythmic variation, and it takes the theme through all sorts of different characteristics.
The brothers love classical music, and their skill and talent keep them in demand, playing at venues nationwide. One of their most recent requests, to perform a duet for the radio program From the Top.
I've been playing for 16 years now, since I was 3.
And what sparked your interest?
Well, I keep going because I'm in school now, but I decided to pursue career in music because I've realized that it's a really great outlet for me to really express myself and to show other people, I mean, what music has done for my life, and I want to inspire others to maybe pursue that same career path or just discovering music in the same way that I have.
Mom, she started me on the cello. Kind of had to play cello because I was the last one born for the family quartet, and there had to be a cello in the quartet. So I was born into it, and my mom's been keeping me pushing up until about age 10, 11, or 12, and that's when I realized that I was, I guess, pretty good at this. So I started taking it a bit more seriously, and after some of the things that have happened this year and last year, I've kind of decided that after all the opportunities I've gotten, there's no reason I shouldn't take this seriously.
"11-year-old Kyle Hu of Yorktown started his classical music career 4 years ago, but you'd never guess that listening to him play.
I was hoping that when they get home that they will be inspired to learn the piano.
When From the Top comes to town, a lot more goes on than preparations for the big concert. Community outreach is also an important part of the visit. Young musicians from all over the country are part of the tour. While here, the group spent time with even younger musicians at Newport News' Carver Elementary School. The From the Top concert that includes performances by Brendan, Sterling, and Kyle was recently recorded at Norfolk's historic Attucks Theater. It will be rebroadcast on WHRV-FM. For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
And you can look for the entire concert with interviews from Brendan and Sterling Saturday, June 28th at noon on our sister classical music station, 90.3 WHRO-FM. And I want to take a moment to go back over to Pledge Central and catch up on how we're doing with our $2,000 challenge. How's it going, guys?
We have a little bit of money left, Barbara. So if folks,
thank you for that call.
On that right there, actually.
Thank you.
We had to start things off at the top of the noon hour, we had $2,000 of challenge money to meet dollar for dollar, and from what I understand, we do have a little bit left. So if you haven't made a pledge of support to Another View, you can do it right now. It's 757-889-9476, 757-889-9476, or online at WHRV.org.
Sorry, absolutely, no problem, Sandra.
It's the end of the week.
Okay, absolutely. I appreciate that so much, you guys. Just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. And I also want to take a moment to give a personal thanks to all of you who support Another View by becoming a member of WHRV during the show. The money goes into a big pot to pay for programming here on WHRV-FM, but the bosses pay attention to how well the phones ring during each show. Your call of support during Another View means that you value the show, and for that, Lisa, Victor, and I are very grateful. It's not too late to call 889-9476 and tell the volunteer that you love Another View. We sure appreciate it. Next week, it's Another View on Health with Dr. Keith Newby. Find out about new grassroots efforts to help all of us make better choices about our health. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer, and Ashley Liggins answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Oh, and before I go, happy anniversary, Mr. Maxie Lee. We celebrate 6 years of marital bliss tomorrow. Have a great weekend, everyone, and let's get together again next Friday at noon for Another View.